Welcome back to A Scientist Among Us. I've been doing a series about obesity, but I wanted to take a little time to step outside that field so I can talk about how Madagascar has claimed to find a cure for COVID-19. So about a month ago, Madagascar's president, Andre Rajoelina, released a product called COVID Organics. It's a drink, it's a tea made from a plant called Artemisia Annua, and he claimed that it could be used to treat COVID-19. Now, the WHO has claimed that this treatment has not been tested, and that is 100% true. This has not been tested. So this video, I'm just gonna look into the literature and study Artemisia Annua, and I'm not gonna claim that COVID Organics works, but I really want it to work because it would be really cool to actually have a treatment for this disease. So let's go ahead and theorize based on natural products chemistry, see if there's anything in this plant that can actually go ahead and treat the disease. Artemisia annua is commonly called sweet wormwood. It grows in many parts of Asia, including China, and it also grows in Africa. It is traditionally used to treat malaria and has even shown anti-cancer properties because it produces a compound called artemisinin. Artemisinin was discovered in 1972 by a Chinese pharmaceutical chemist named Tu Yu, and she was the first Chinese Nobel laureate in physiology and medicine. Artemisinin is kind of an amazing story. Before artemisinin, chloroquine was the only drug that was around to treat malaria. Now, malaria, the parasite, was becoming resistant to chloroquine, and people were dying worldwide from malaria, and there was nothing to do about it. Scientists screened so many compounds against the resistant malaria parasite, and none of them worked until artemisinin was discovered. And the reason it's such an amazing story is because Tu Yu was actually someone who tested it on herself before it went into clinical trials just to make sure it was safe. She kind of said she was the head of that research project. They found the compound, they wanted to test it, so it was her responsibility to make sure it was safe. And after she proved that it was safe by testing it on herself, then it went to human clinical trials. And I think it takes a good amount of fortitude to do something that crazy. That's pretty respectable. Now, I'm an organic chemist by training, so I really nerd out over chemical structures, and artemisinin has a really cool chemical structure. It's got these multiple bridged rings of carbons, and it's also got that peroxide unit in there. And that peroxide unit is really unusual amongst natural products. You don't often see that because normally that's a really unstable thing. It normally breaks apart, and it's really not like something you can isolate in most compounds. The instability of that peroxide unit can actually be seen in the way that artemisinin is extracted from Artemisia annua. So, if you extract it using hot water, you can actually decompose that peroxide unit. So normally when artemisinin is extracted from the plants, they use solvents and they try to maintain room temperature or even cold temperatures, and they try not to destroy that peroxide ring. So now for the question at hand. Can artemisinin, the compound found within the plant Artemisia annua, which has had so much success in treating malaria, can it treat COVID-19, the disease that's caused by the virus SARS-CoV-2? The first reason to be optimistic that this might be true is that there's a company called Mateon Therapeutics that's looking for COVID-19 cures, and they're actually looking at artemisinin. Now, a therapeutics company wouldn't just start looking at a compound and investing money into it unless it's actually shown some kind of activity. And Mateon's partners actually claim that they found that the compound has inhibitory activity, meaning that it slows down the virus's reproduction. And if you can slow down the virus's reproduction, then it makes sense that this would actually be able to treat the disease. Now, none of this data has been made publicly available, so I don't know if this is true. It's just a reason to be optimistic. A second study to also make me be optimistic is based on computational docking. So, computational docking is when you take the structure, if you know the structure of some protein, and then you create drugs that can bind to the protein, with the idea being that if the drug binds to the protein, it'll stop the function of that protein, it'll mess up the function, and as a result, the protein won't be active. Now, there's a protein in SARS-CoV-2 called the spike protein, which this virus is using to get into cells, and that's part of the virus's life cycle. So, if you can design a drug that binds to the spike protein, perhaps you can inhibit its function, and as a result, the virus cannot replicate. Now, people have used computational models to actually screen all the known drugs to see if it can actually bind to the spike protein, and they found out that artemisinin and its various derivatives can actually bind to it. Now, has this been actually tested in real life? No, but it's a cool piece of theory that gives me a reason to be optimistic for this possibility. There's also a second computational study looking at the SARS-CoV-2 main protease. So, this protease is needed to produce the genetic material that actually allows the virus to reproduce as well. So, if you mess up the protease, once again, the virus cannot replicate. So, they found that artesunate, at least computationally, on the computer, can bind to the main protease and potentially can act as an inhibitor. So artesunate's got a really similar structure to artemisinin. So the idea is that artemisinin would have similar activity to artesunate. And if this is true, this might be another possible mechanism of how artemisinin can kill SARS-CoV-2 and treat COVID-19. Now, none of this is actually proof that this therapy would work. The only way to really know is to take it into the clinic and try it. And the nice thing about artemisinin is it's a known drug and people know its safety profile. So this makes clinical trials way easier to plan, and it makes it more of a possibility that this could actually happen. There are some downsides to using artemisinin, however. So malaria today, there are actually forms of malaria that are resistant to artemisinin. And if everybody's taking small amounts of artemisinin, not enough to necessarily kill a malaria parasite, but enough to allow it to become resistant, well, then that resistant form of malaria is going to grow and it's going to become more of a problem for the world. So the fear is that by using this Artemisia Annua tea, COVID organics, will you spread resistant malaria? And I'm going to leave this up to the health experts. I don't think that this should not be tested in clinical trials. Matter of fact, I think it should totally be tested because we don't really have any options, right? So test everything. But it's something to be kept in mind. Now, the second thing to keep in mind is that artemisinins in short supply. So if we use up the source for how it's made, the plants, will there be enough left for a malaria outbreak after this whole pandemic goes through? And I don't know the answer to that either, but it's something to be aware of, and I will leave the healthcare workers who actually do this for a living. They should be the ones to make these decisions. Now, these are some of the reasons to be cautious, and there are so many reasons to be optimistic as well. I hope Madagascar's found a cure for COVID-19, and I hope it's as simple as making a tea out of a natural plant, because that is so easy to manufacture, so it's going to be cheap and everybody can afford it. And people tend to trust natural products a little bit more than they trust synthetic products, and I kind of understand that. So it would be really cool if you could actually have this kind of a product that would have good marketing appeal and low price. And if Madagascar led the way in solving this world problem, how cool would that be for Madagascar? Because it is a poor country right now and they could really use any kind of economic activity that they can get. How cool would it be if this actually worked? This would be like a really, really prideful moment for them. And I think that little countries need a lot of pride so they can grow and they can take their place on the world stage. So with this, if you followed me through the entire video, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, share with your friends and like and subscribe below. And I'll be back with more content. I have a series that I do on obesity because I really want to understand that as a disease down to little biochemical steps and all the way up to population level studies. And you should check that out because I think it's really cool. And I'll be back with more content soon. Don't forget to breathe. Breathing is life. And if you want life to be happy, you must breathe.